I was in this speaking class in my high school years ago, and I had taught myself how to juggle when I was younger. But in this class, we had a how-to speech to get done. So I chose how to juggle. And in the midst of my research, was trying to convince people, why it might be a good idea to juggle. And so I started to come across the brain, like the brain chemistry of it, and specifically the gray matter of the brain. So there's this little bitty space of the brain called the cerebellum, and she sits like right back there. Like if you're looking at a picture of it, she's kind of like the little butt of the brain. And she's primarily composed of gray matter. And it's so fascinating because the gray matter is related to motor movement. And we are kinetic beings. So if you had no control over your gray matter, so essentially as we age, we lose the functioning of the cerebellum system. So I always say, think about an elderly person, right? Their posture, cerebellum is responsible for posture and autonomic system control, which we lose with age. So posture, out of whack. Muscles, we lose muscles as we age really fast, right? Because that regulates our autonomic nervous system and our muscle tone at rest. Can't smell, can't hear, can't see. And what's cool about the cerebellum, why are we talking all about the senses? But the cerebellum is actually responsible for secondary sensory perception in the brain. So we have took a neurochemistry course once at LSU. I don't remember everything, but I do remember that there's primary regions of the brain. So we have primary motor functions, and then you have secondary motor functions. Then you have primary visual functions and secondary visual functions. And all of this is like an age. So imagine this. Imagine that you not only had your primary centers on, but you also had your secondary centers on. And a lot of people, again, we're kind of just struggling with our energy production in the brain as a whole. But what else is cool about the cerebellum? It's 10%. In Latin, it's known as little brain, if I didn't say that already. But the cerebellum is less than 10% of the whole brain, but it has 50% or more of the total neurons. And I think Robert Sapolsky talked about this in his books. He talked about when he was talking about the stress response and how many calories we burned due to our stress being too high in the brain, mentally. But he talked about chess players that would burn the same amount of calories as marathon runners. I remember hearing about this and I thought that was a crazy idea. I just thought it was bananas. And it made me think is the cerebellum the tap water of the brain, right? Because we know the brain takes 20 to 30% of the total body's energy. And mind you, I'm coming from a place where I'm trying to restore insulin resistance in my brain. I was struggling with depression and anxiety at this point in my life, and my body was kind of out of whack. So I was trying to restore insulin sensitivity, was trying to regenerate my mitochondrial functioning, my cellular functioning, and trying to figure out how can I boost this. I need to get more muscle, more energy in my body so that I can fuel my brain, because essentially right now, being that I'm in an elevated stress response chronically, my brain is actually suffocating and depleting my body, and I'm losing muscle at a fast rate. We know these things about the stress response. So how can I help my body to get back on track? And again, that's why they say exercise is so great, because the cerebellum, if you just know the functioning of the cerebellum. So it's mostly comprised of gray matter within the brain and the spinal cord. This is the central nervous system. There's gray and there's white matter. So white matter is related more to our emotional states. But if you look at diseases, you look at Alzheimer's and dementia, and this is literally, we lose both of those things, right? And as they say, as you get older, make sure that you stay moving so that it will keep your memory sharp and you can keep your emotions sharp. And so it's kind of like a two-way street. I think a lot of people try and do a lot of emotional work without incorporating the physical, but the physical is just as important, right? Nighttime is just as important as daytime is just as important as nighttime. But if you're really in a bad place, movement is so helpful for the body. Like, everybody knows this, but the more that you move, the better you can digest your food. Let's say you're having problems with bloating, right? And I always talk about, like, squish this into your fasted state. You know, like, make your body work and create its own sugars. We have an incredible capacity in the body to, like, go without food for such a long time because we can actually create our own sugars. And we call it gluconeogenesis. So there's so much we can create in the body. There's constant life and death, and the cerebellum is definitely responsible for that. And I really think it's responsible for us being in a more calm state. So cerebellum communicates with our frontal cortex the most, and it's responsible for literally, like, quickness and speed of processing. So it even, like, reflexes, right? Cerebellum is responsible for reflexes. That's why I'm a huge fan of the juggling. Gotta say it again. But, you know, it's important, if you're trying to stay out of the stress state, to engage with your cerebellum, engage with your mitochondria, and the functioning of your body, your immune system. So anyway, I think that's all I got for my rambles today. Just a little bit of love for you on your journey. I do wish you the best of luck. As always, like, share, subscribe. Hey, look, send it to your grandparents. Send it to your parents. Tell them you love them, you know, if you want. And as always, good luck.